Okay, this is the meeting of the Town of Fairfield's Affordable Housing Committee. We're meeting in the Old Town Hall second floor conference room, Wednesday, October 8th at 7:03 p.m. as well as via Zoom. This is being recorded and we do have a quorum, so I'll turn things over to you, Mr. Chair, for your opening remarks and then the introduction.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Special welcome to Carol and our other guests this evening. And maybe as a first item, we can just go around the room and introduce ourselves. And Carol, would you like to start? Then you
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Carol Martin, representing tonight the Fairfield Housing Corp., but also you know me as Carol Martin, Executive Director of the Fairfield Housing Authority. I'm lucky enough to be with Erin Goodwin, who is an intern working with the Housing Authority, maybe interested in becoming a future affordable housing developer or manager. And I was lucky enough tonight to drag two good old colleagues of mine, but they're actually very important. They're helping me close the project with financing. I have Jen Salvanese and Kent Lewis with the Housing Development Team, and please feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure, we're housing development consultants. We work primarily with nonprofits, and we are assisting in the closing of this deal.
Excellent. Erin, Jen, and Kent, great to meet you. Great to have you with us. And so we'll introduce the rest of us. My name's Herb Limecooler. I'm the current chair of the committee. Janice?
I'm Janice Bullabasis.
Tom?
Tom Phillips, resident, Fairfield.
Jackie Page.
Brian Vahey.
Steve Grothwall.
And Mark Barnhart.
And our esteemed secretary, Gretchen Gertner. So great to have everyone here. So first, our next item of business would be to approve our minutes of the September 10th meeting.
I will note, I will prepare minutes, they'll be very brief, for the special meeting we had yesterday, which is the Habitat site tour. So just no votes were taken, but I'll record who was actually present at the event. So thank you all who were able to attend.
Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we distributed the minutes of the September 10th meeting. I'll just add one thing. I don't think we need to do any correction, but it mentions that Jackie and I were at the walk. And it was actually Jackie who was at the walk. I was.
And Bob.
I had a sort of a urgent family matter that came up that day. I was involved in a conference call later, but I don't think we need to change the
No
minutes.
excuses.
I misunderstood, I can take you out.
I don't, well, whatever's easy, don't worry about it.
My wife's name is misspelled too.
Uh-oh.
Christin.
I didn't.
Oh, jeez, I'm
It
sorry.
drives her
I know
mad.
that, I know better.
I think
It's not hyphenated.
Hey, we're gonna.
That usually happens, but you
I
know,
think we all know that by now, but, you know.
it's on the dangle.
So I'm gonna make those two changes and with that.
Anything else? Anyone have anything else?
Well, I have a question, not a correction. Can I ask the question?
Yes, sure.
Mark, you said that you might be changing the ground leases over at Greenfield to create a common interest community.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Condo.
Condo.
Well, we can get to that when we get to the whole business items, but
Okay, fine. Okay.
actually, both, everything has its advantages and disadvantages in terms of structure, but this is something Habitat would like, and we're okay.
Okay, I just not had heard that term before, so.
Fancy condo. Fancy name for condo.
There you go, small condo.
All good. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes
With corrections.
With the
with two
corrections.
changes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay, approved. So our next item, we'll turn to 980 High Street. And Carol?
Yeah, you're
You
gonna
have the
take it
floor.
away. Just kidding. I thought Many of you, I think, have followed the project for a very long period of time, but I thought I would just start out for the benefit of everyone. Most of you know this, but to just reiterate the relationship between the Fairfield Housing Authority and the Fairfield Housing Corp. You folks know the Housing Authority is created under state law, and I believe 1964, February, if I'm not mistaken, which I happened to be around then, don't remember anything, but the town declared, a shortage of decent, safe, and sanitary housing. And the acting body of the town created the Housing Authority. And so the Housing Authority has been operating on and off, right, for, a good, almost, 80 years now, or 60 years, right? 2013, we were in need, the Housing Authority was in need of, getting some cash and doing some renovations at Trefoil. And we were trying to access a HUD-insured note instrument, and housing authorities weren't eligible applicants for this. So we ended up creating a 501c3 for the purposes of this refi, but more importantly, to open up other types of financing that housing authorities were not typically able to do. And so the sole member of the Fairfield Housing Corp is the Fairfield Housing Authority. The governance of it is the Fairfield Housing Authority operates completely independent as a 501c3. So they're not bound necessarily by any housing authority regulations or statutes, but the Fairfield Housing Corp shares the same mission as the Housing Authority. We have a Fairfield Housing Corp, who's the developer and sponsor of 980 High Street, has 3 board of directors of the nonprofit. 2 of those board of director individuals are also commissioners that sit on the Fairfield Housing Authority. But the Housing Authority itself and the Corp act independently. And the only reason I'm raising that tonight is I know a lot of people interchange the Corp and the Authority, everything from utility companies to, people looking for housing. And so although it's a distinction, rest assured that both the Housing Authority and the Fairfield Housing Corp share the same mission, which is trying to create more accessible, affordable housing. In the case of the Housing Authority, we are only allowed to do it within the boundaries of the town of Fairfield. The nice thing about having a nonprofit corp is if a neighboring town or whomever came to the corp to help them, whether it's through technical assistance or having a role in financing or management, the Housing Corp could, avail themselves of that. And the reason I guess that's important tonight, because we're talking about the project and the structure and the financing of it. The Fairfield Housing Authority really doesn't have any funds available. In fact, the sole, source of income for the Fairfield Housing Authority is our Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is reinvented from the Section 8 program, but it's really rental assistance that we are lucky enough to house about 150 families here in Fairfield in the private rental market. The income from that program is restricted, right? So the income that we get is really designed to administer the program. And that's really the source of the income that the Housing Authority has. Fairfield Housing Corp, to segue into the project, and Erin, if you wouldn't mind just passing along. We brought 11 by 17 because I can no longer read a site plan on 8.5 by 11. Do you mind just, passing it out? Many of you, again, I think have been around a while, but just to refresh your memory about the project. The Housing Authority has no funds in the project, and the reason the Housing Authority doesn't have any funds in the project is they're not involved with the project whatsoever. The nonprofit, obviously, Fairfield Housing Corp is the sponsor and the developer. It was the Fairfield Housing Corp that took the development fee we earned from redeveloping Pine Tree to go and purchase the project, the property at 980 High Street when it was for sale. And fast forward, that happened in December of 2018, seems like ages ago. Fast forward to today, we're here before you, obviously, to gain your support and approval, obviously, for some housing trust fund dollars that appear in the financing stack.
Carol, if I ask you
No, not at
questions
all,
about
Brian.
the authority and the court.
Yeah.
So really, the authority does nothing. It's not even the operator. So really, everything is the court. The
Right.
developer operates all the, maintains all the buildings, processes the rent. So it's really, so everybody's employees of the court.
Yeah, so the employee has no court, has no direct employee. They contract for services. For instance, I'm appearing tonight as a contractor of Fairfield Housing Corp., not as an employee of the Fairfield Housing Authority. But it's a great distinction, Brian, because people do, obviously, they see me and they just automatically think, right, that it's, the executive director of the Housing Authority. So,
Have other municipalities followed this format?
yeah, actually, I would say probably the larger ones, I think, went towards this model quicker than some of the smaller housing authorities. But I would say probably at least half of the housing authorities now across the state of Connecticut have a 501c3. I don't necessarily know how active they are because, as we
Right.
all know, nonprofits really have a problem with trying to get capital to operate.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So, the Housing Corp. Purchased the property back in 2018 for approximately $2.1 million. We didn't have $2.1 million in our bank account to buy the property, so we went to a friendly lender who lent us money, $1 million to be exact, to purchase the property. We've been paying on that loan, interest only, since December of 2018. So, the carrying costs on the property obviously are pretty substantial. The goal, obviously, would be to gain your support tonight. And I did pass out the site plan. It's a really succinct site plan. The architectural team deserves full credit for it, which is we are going to restore the original 1895 Judd home. We will repurpose it and gut rehab it to contain our offices for both property management and our service providers. We are going to take off, there's an addition off the back of the house that is not the vintage 1895 farmhouse, but nonetheless, we're going to take that addition off and build a community room, not quite the size, obviously, of Pine Tree, for those of you that have actually been to Pine Tree, but, a place, obviously, where our residents have some space to either entertain, educate, do anything, obviously, that they would like to do in the community space. We have 5 buildings, each with 8 apartments. So that's how we get to the 40. All the first floor apartments are fully barrier-free accessible. The site is accessible. And basically they're sort of flats over townhouses. So you have, we'll be up 2.5 stories, from a zoning perspective, they call it 3, but it's not a full 3rd story, but for zoning purposes, we are a 3-story building. And we'll have 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. And the reason I'm excited about the 3-bedroom units, you may not know this, but the Fairfield Housing Authority has both Trefoil Court and Pine Tree and Greenfield Commons, none of which has a 3-bedroom apartment. So, we have families that lease up our 2-bedroom and the family grows, and there's really no place, obviously, for them to, go into a more appropriate sized apartment. So, it's great, and I think we have 6 3-bedroom units in the project. And so I'll just pause there for a second. I can tell you about National Green Building Standard, Emerald Leveled, and some of the really cool things that are part of the project, and frankly, promoted by, both the Department of Housing and the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority about energy efficiency. You folks, I guess, pay some utility bills wherever you live, and it's getting to be like a mortgage payment, right? So what we're trying to do, right, is create building envelopes and building systems that are much more energy efficient. So, your utilities are not more than the rent you pay. So we're really happy about that. And I don't have to tell you that the stormwater design and water quality. We spent a lot of time redesigning that and had 2 passes at the Conservation Commission. So I feel really, really, really good about the improvements we've made to stormwater design. The engineers, both at the town as well as the engineers we hired, really did a great job. I know some of the folks south of the property, because of, the way water flows, have experienced over the years, even when it was farmland, right? They've had some flooding. And so that was clearly a concern of my team and myself. And obviously, time will tell, but I really think we're actually going to help address what they've been experiencing. I think the folks downstream of us will actually see an improvement. But that will be proven out as a matter of, over time. So I'll just pause there for a second, and if you have any questions in particular about the design. Everyone has their own entrances. There's no common hallways. The only space really that's shared would be the community space up in the community building. We are, to anyone of interest, a lot of times folks want to know, the commitments we're making on who we're housing. And I'm really happy to report that we're partnering with the Department of Disability Services at the state of Connecticut and a local service provider, STAR, out of Norwalk, who has expertise in providing services to adults with developmental disabilities, which is a population obviously underserved everywhere, including Fairfield. So we're actually really excited about that. I've been involved in another development north of here where we're successfully housing in an independent setting adults with developmental disabilities. And, that population obviously doesn't have a lot of housing options and choices as well. So I'm really looking forward, obviously, to leasing up apartments for adults with developmental disabilities. And if no more questions or interrupt me, you feel
I
free.
have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead, Steve. I was gonna
100%
get,
affordable, right?
yes. And so we all know people throw the word affordable and then everyone says, well, what exactly does that mean? If we asked everybody in this room, we'd probably get a little bit different of a feeling for it. But we, when we originally had done the underwriting and came before this body to get through planning and zoning, you wrote a letter of support back then. The project actually contemplated some unrestricted units. So, let's call them market rate, for lack of a better word. The project now, because of the cost overruns, right, and the long time it took us to get to this point, we could no longer not take the low-income housing tax credit equity, so we needed to maximize that. So to answer, Stephen, your really good question, which is we go from 80% AMI all the way down to 30% AMI. So every unit has a restrictive covenant on it. So, not to, and I don't want to, go into, we're happy to provide as much support to the 830G moratoria points. That really wasn't like the reason why we went all affordable, but certainly one of the things that the town's Planning and Zoning Commission may feel is appropriate is the project as it's currently designed and underwritten actually will develop more 830G points than the original project that came before Planning and Zoning. But really what drove that is we needed the tax credit equity. We needed more apartments in basis.
So it appears to be 81 points, 81 moratorium points, which would be really a tremendous asset to what we, at this point, have in the offing. Because we need about almost 330 points, I think, to get to the
Second
moratorium.
Which would be quite an accomplishment, obviously, for the town. Yeah.
I have a question about how many feet from the back of this building, abutting Oakwood, how close are they to the neighbors?
10 feet?
10 feet.
Yeah.
And then on the other side too, behind Country Road, 10 feet as well?
Right, so the setback on the side yards were 10 feet, but I do want to, because this does come up all the time, and it's a, valid point. So we had gone door knocking originally to see, for the owners, what type of screening and fencing and everything, and we incorporated those comments into our landscape plan. I actually had our landscape architect walk with me and the neighbors. So we tried to, obviously, there's been some turnover in neighbors, so we'll be back doing some door knocking. But I guess what I want to say, and this is for those of you that know this neighborhood, both the Country Road property and the Oakwood properties, the homes are closer to the street. So their backyards offer a good 50 or 60 feet before you get to the house. Some of the newer communities that are created have almost zero property line, and you literally have, your bedroom backing up to 10 feet of another building. So it's 10 feet, I believe, for the side yards.
And then so I see a stone wall, an existing stone wall.
Yep.
How high is that wall?
So
We do something to help these neighbors?
yeah, so we're actually putting up fencing on this side of the wall to prevent, them.
6 feet. 6 foot?
I want to say zoning, I think was 7 feet, but I can certainly check that. In addition, we talked about planting arborvitaes, yeah, not the ones the deers eat, the ones that grow 2 feet a year.
Right, that
They're
would
called
help,
the
yes.
Jolly Green Giant.
Yeah.
But yeah, and honestly, Bill Kenny was our landscape architect, and he's just really good about picking out, screening that's low maintenance, doesn't require, any type of cleanup or anything like that. But, full disclosure, we'll be back at it once we start talking to some of our newer neighbors, and frankly, even some of the neighbors that are still there, their thoughts and ideas may have changed. So, we did spend a lot of time on that though, and for good reason. And not only that, the folks that move into our residence don't necessarily want to be looking out into someone's
Yeah,
yard as
absolutely.
well, right? Everyone likes a little bit of privacy, I think. So I don't know if that answers your
That does
question.
answer my question, thank you.
So I'm sorry, what street are we talking about, Janice?
Both on, so High Street, you have Oakwood over
Country
here, and then Country Road is like a loop, and so is Oakwood, I think.
So it'll be fencing on all the
then
way
be-
around? Okay.
This street here, I trying to picture it.
Rockasee
Is that-
backs up into it, but you've got all the.
I know there's a huge buffer on
Right.
this side, I'm not as.
It's Rockasee that
Yeah.
backs into it, but those folks won't even know
Yeah.
anything's going on
No,
because it's a heavily wooded area.
I agree with that, I'm worried about these and this
Yeah.
and traffic
Yeah.
and Holland Hill and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah. I went to Holland Hill School. Did you? I won't tell you what year. It was before they remodeled it.
That was recent, the remodel.
Yeah.
My kids were there before. it
Oh,
was
good.
remodeled.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought unless you have any
No,
other
no,
question, I
no,
just wanted to get a little bit into the financing,
Yeah,
the
thank
sources
you.
and uses.
Thank you.
Or at least the sources. Karen, would you mind passing out the sources? Again, 11 by 17, so we all can see it.
Appreciate that, because the other one is.
I know, even these glasses aren't doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erin. I think Jen dreams about it at night.
Or nightmares.
Yeah, that too. So the sources are pretty much full, excluding obviously the deferred developer fee and the housing trust funds from the town. The three sources of funds fall into tax credit equity, right, for the investor, and DOH funding, that's State of Connecticut Connecticut funding that comes through our bond commission. And then we also have a performing mortgage on the property that will be provided by the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. So those are sort of the three buckets of funding sources. And again, the developer is deferring our fee to fill some of the gap. And obviously, we've included $570,000 of the town's housing trust fund dollars.
Your, I'll call it pre-construction financing of rotor. How do you finance it? Like, how have you, where is that falling on your, is that tucked in there? Is it like a cost of development?
Right, so Brian's question completely valid because there's a lot of, the acquisition is written into the deal. I think we included the development budget in the application. So the acquisition is included as well as the interest for the acquisition. The architect and engineering fees obviously are all included. Our attorney fees are all included. So, yeah, it's built into the overall budget.
A little bit lower. Well, I mean, I know the interest rates changed dramatically, but I mean, roughly, do you know how much that financing has cost you over the, it's been a while, but.
Yeah, I think Jen probably could answer that question.
A little over $360,000 of interest.
Yeah, I was wondering how close that was to 570. Thanks.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mark, Nina is on and she's saying, she has a question. I'm guessing that's her on the
The one that's muted? Or
80,
803, 803, 7719?
She said around 300.
Is there a reason why she's muted? Did she unmute herself?
that's her. Let me just tell her she's muted.
Were there any other pre-development stuff that was out of the ordinary or more than what you anticipated on?
There was, and it's, in the construction documents, when we did our environmental testing, Brian, there was products that, our parents bought almost anywhere, that now are considered, not acceptable as far as environmental. So, around the foundation of the house, we found some, pesticides. Again, it was commonly sold. So at the time it was applied, it was completely okay. But, fast forward 30 years later, it wasn't okay. So we've got to excavate and truck off about 3 feet of dirt around the foundation of the existing.
Farmhouse?
Yeah.
And then also the additional water plan, did the town pick up a bunch of that, or do you guys have to carry a bunch of that?
As far as the redesign and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was all the developer. Yeah, we paid for that. Yeah.
Estimate about how much that was too.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say probably the extra stormwater design itself was probably about another 100, 150.
Rita, do you want to go ahead and answer the question? Sorry.
Okay, yeah, so the question that I had was just, and Janice answered it, but my question was whether this was something that was temporary for the usual 40 years that 830G is for, or is this a permanent thing? As far as affordable housing is concerned.
Right, so the restrictive covenants that the state of Connecticut are gonna require us to sign, I'm guessing they're gonna be worth a 50. Yeah.
How long did you say? Sorry, breaking up. Hello?
You're getting a lot of feedback, background noise, Nina, where you are.
Okay, I'm gonna try and,
2 a.m.
so I was just asking, is this a temporary thing, or is this a,
What I
how
heard
long
Carol-
is the affordability for?
What I heard Carol say was the Chaffa restrictive covenant is 50 years.
It's
Okay,
gonna
thank
be
you.
worth And Nina, I don't know if this gives you any comfort, but my Fairfield Housing Corp. is providing a leasehold interest into the property. And so when the investor leaves, our nonprofit will step into the shoes. So, for your good question, how many years is it
Do we
affordable?
consider this permanently affordable?
Right. The Fairfield Housing Corp. considers it permanently affordable. Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Okay, that was my question.
Great question.
Yeah, Carol, could I expand on that? If it's 40 years or 50 years, 70 years, can it become condominiums, or is it always going to be affordable in perpetuity?
Right, so if the Fairfield Housing Corp. will own it, our mission is to keep it affordable. So we won't be flipping it to, it's not within our mission. Yeah.
Financed into a 4%
Thank you.
deal to extend it.
You may want to mute yourself again and then let us know if you want to come off.
Either that or invite us to cocktail hour.
That's not good. Brian, did you get what you needed in terms of development budget?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody heard, but it's roughly another 100, 150 on the additional
Design of the stormwater system,
stormwater and some of the
interest carrying cost. Okay.
in the
Where's-
ground or stuff. So
Where was that money coming from?
It's in the budget. It's in the total development cost. Yep.
so in other words, when you start it off, there's there's contingencies that can't, you can't force it
Right,
everything. So
absolutely.
ultimately, it's got to get paid. So I was curious where it was, and there's usually a whole other spreadsheet that breaks it all out. But, I don't need to see it, but just wanted to know what the numbers were.
It was in the packet, so. Maybe not broken down with that granularity, but appreciate it.
But basically, the three buckets are the state of Connecticut funding, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority funding, and the important 9% tax credit equity, which you can see, the tax credit equity is bringing in $10,558,944. That, of course, assumes that, we get the project done on time, which is our goal. Reason I have Jen and Ken here. And the other, huge amount of money is another, looks like 10.6 million of state funds. So there's a very, very, very serious commitment of state bond money to create, funding in high opportunity communities, which Fairfield happens to be one.
Deeply targeted affordable units.
Correct.
How quickly do you have to be, it has to be done and leased up, right?
Yes.
So what is that, what's that date?
So we're hoping that we can start construction early. We plan to be closing first week of December, I would say. But we hope to be starting construction, as early as the first week of November. 25.
November.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you guys know this, the reason is we don't want to lose these months of good construction.
It has to be done by,
So
once you break ground, is that when the clock starts or once?
Well, it actually starts as soon as we ink the LPA, but when we have our closing. But to answer your good question is, when are folks going to be moving in, right? Because that's the important question. We plan to start leasing in February, I'm guessing, of 2027. Be fully leased up by April 1st, 2027. Jen, if I said any wrong dates, correct me.
Yeah, about a 2-year construction.
When do we get the credits for when construction starts?
COs?
When they're in the ground, when they're open.
Yes, you get the credits, you get the points
Yeah.
when things are CO'd.
Wow.
Steve, do you have additional?
I do have another question. So what are the tax credits going for these days?
Oh, you want to know how the credit market is? Well, we actually, we're actually working with a nonprofit tax credit investment, and their yield was 88 cents on the dollar,
88?
which, yeah. And we had originally underwritten it at 90 cents. But with everything going on in the market, the government shutting down, I mean, I don't have to tell you, anything that's happening globally affects, the tax credit investment markets. Not much that we have control over, but we felt, I think, pretty good, Jen, that Grow America came in at 88 cents. It was a gap we could kind of figure out how we could fill it, versus coming in at, 78 cents. And it's like, well,
That's enough, but that's another points, right? So.
good question, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The name is the Judd Homestead at Russo Estates. What's the significance of Russo?
So, the Russo family, so the Judd family, Lorraine and Louis, didn't have any children. And so the Russo family was very close and did a lot of caretaking for the family. So when they set up, the estate planning, the benefactor was Joyce Russo, who also lives in Fairfield, who grew up here. And they went out to sell the property. And the Fairfield Housing Corp plus other developers and builders bid it. And we were lucky enough, obviously, to find a fair-minded seller that sold us the property for $2.1 million. We're grateful. And part of that proposal that we put in included that we would, Fairfield Housing Corp, obviously with their full consent and permission, would like to name the project after the Judd family and Russo family. For their, for their, commitment to creating more affordable units in the town. So that's how we came up with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody's been shortening it on our calls to Judd Russo because it officially is the Judd Homestead at Russo Estates.
Steve, other questions?
No.
So one thing that just came up in some discussions, I thought I'd raise it, would be the developer fee in terms of how that was developed, what the basis for that is and how this compares to what you're seeing in other comparable deals.
Sure. So the developer fee is controlled by the financing, the competitiveness of the financing up at Jaffa. So it's not like we can go up and say, we want more or less. It's a percentage of the cost of the project. And so, the developer fee is, you could certainly argue on this one, we probably should have been double what we're getting paid. But needless to say, because we're mission oriented, yes, we need to earn a fee, but, the reality is the fee is determined by the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority's QAP. I don't know if that helps or
That
but
fee
it's
is earned
just.
by the Fairfield Housing Corporation.
Correct. Yep. So the funds will come back to the 501c3.
Which is what provided the financing initially, assistance to purchase the property.
Right, and keep in mind, the Fairfield Housing Corp is a guarantor on the project. And so if something goes wrong, it's the Fairfield Housing Corp that will have to pay for it. So, it's risk reward, right? You earn a developer fee, you really earn it because you take on the risk,
This is part of the pro forma.
Exactly.
Not guaranteed.
Exactly.
Nina, you had another question?
I think whoever Amanda is.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Let's make sure we get the committee questions and then we'll move to, we have one person from the public here, that's Tom. And we'll go to Tom first, and then we can go to people that are online. So.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah,
I don't know
it's,
if this works, but
Thank you, Carol.
What is it?
it's a dust buster. Even if we just use it for the car.
We're getting a lot of feedback. If you want to mute yourself until you're ready. I can't.
Is there other
There you go.
questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have an ownership question.
sure, yeah.
So,
Hopefully I can answer it, Steve.
the property's gonna be owned by whom 3 years from now? Who's gonna own it,
Partnership.
the partnership? And if there, let's say, really bad something happens and the project goes down, then are there any other projects that might be at risk, like Pine Tree? Is that somewhere in the T-Stack,
Separate,
separate.
separate.
All right,
Yeah.
so,
And for the record, none of the guarantees were called on at Pine Tree, so.
They're all separate LLCs, right?
Yes, yeah.
and Pine Tree years ago was a mess, and so are their reserves set up so that annually there's enough money to do the maintenance and stuff?
There's a replacement reserve that's in the underwriting, Steve, that we make deposits in every month
Yeah,
for replacements.
okay. Thank you.
Janice,
Sorry, I'm just sending her a zoomed picture, but Nina,
additional questions?
no, no, thank you.
Good. Jackie? Ryan? Steve?
No,
So I guess we've addressed questions from the committee. So why don't we, Tom, do you have anything at this point?
A comment. I live very near Lake Mohegan, and there's a St. Catherine's Center for Children with Special Needs near there. And clearly these children will grow up, and over time they will need housing. So this seems to fit a very real need. As you say, that it's an underserved population everywhere. And I must say it's been a very pleasant experience living near St. Catherine's Center.
Yeah, they do good work.
Yeah. We live 100 to 200 yards from there, and you wouldn't know it was, you wouldn't know it existed.
Thank you for your comments.
Is that the Holy Cross?
So let's go to people that are on Zoom.
Nina, did you have any other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, my kids went
That's
there.
changed. That's changed.
Or comments?
Hi.
I see you're on.
No, did I unmute?
Yes.
Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay, no, my only just comment is, I've just heard negative things or, not negative things, but, kind of, hesitations, for the size of the project and where it is right now from neighbors. And I just want to put that out there, just the fact that there are some concerns with the size of the project and the neighbors and how they feel about it.
Understood.
So Nina, I'm not sure if you heard the earlier comments from Carol about the steps that they're going to be going to in terms of reaching out again to the neighbors, given the fact there's been turnover in the neighborhood in terms of trying to ameliorate, to the extent that they can reasonably do so, issues that neighbors may have. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
did hear.
Great.
But I just wanted to bring it up again, just so we're all aware of
Sure.
the situation.
Yeah, I think there's a couple other people.
Yes, so is that Amanda? Does anyone else from the public that's online have a question or comment? Anyone else from the public?
Going once.
Okay, all right, so apparently not. So back to the committee.
Let me just frame this a little bit. So we have an application request to allocate funds from the Housing Trust Fund in support of this project to help, Carol mentioned, sources of funding for the project close a gap. Allocations to the Housing Trust Fund are subject to the review and approval of not just this body, but the Board of Selectmen. So, and a positive referral from this body would need to then go to the Board of Selectmen for their final review and approval. So I just wanted to point that out. And whatever you guys have in terms of questions or comments or thoughts.
So an answer is needed on a timely basis, obviously, given the schedule that Carol has. So if we're ready, we can put this to a vote this evening. If we needed additional time, we could call a special meeting to address it, but if we're if we're ready to move ahead with a decision, one or the other, then we could certainly proceed this evening.
I think we should proceed.
And I'd just like to make another comment or observation. Because we talk about the balance every month and the proceeds into that account. And we looked at several other projects that have come before us, and really stunned at the increasing cost per unit in town. And I think what's remarkable here is, we've got 8 times 5, you got 40 units. And $500,000 is not a small number, but when you see that it's part of this overall capital stack that helps unlock the 40 units, it's kind of you do the math there, I think that's a pretty decent value per unit created.
I guess I should also, because we usually get to this at some point during the agenda, and somebody asked the question as to what is the balance in the Housing Trust Fund.
Steve always asks that.
So I'm jumping the gun. So as of the end of September, we had an uncommitted balance of $1,364,357 in the fund. And to Brian's point, we have made several allocations, a total of $1.7 million to date from funds that have been raised. Most of that, and they're not apples to apples comparison, because we're working to try to develop affordable home ownership units, which are very difficult, require quite a bit of subsidy. There aren't a lot of sources for that type of project, and we're doing it at a very small scale. But to your point, the projects that we've been involved in, the level of support or subsidy from the Housing Trust Fund is about $60,000 to $150,000 per unit. So when you look at the impact of $570,000, while a substantial amount from the Housing Trust Fund, on a per unit basis, given the other sources of funding into this project, it's less than $15,000 per unit, which, you're getting quite a bit of bang for the buck.
Yeah, it's a nice blend. You
If
gotta-
you want to look at it per moratorium point.
So we're going to look at that. So, we do have, fortunately, our initial moratorium, which is good for 4 years, which expires as of the end of March 2029. We had reserved 22.25 points in our first application for a subsequent application. We have another 116.25 points under either in approved projects that have already been completed and received their certificates of occupancy, or under construction will likely be completed and CO'd well before the expiration of our current moratorium. So that leaves a balance of 191.23 points needed to achieve our second moratorium by that date. So 81 points, which is what this project is worth, represents about 42% of the remaining balance. So it's a very significant chunk of that project. So
that's good color.
I also wanted to get back to Nina's expression of concern that she hears about the size, and also to Janice, who lives close by and has similar feedback that she gets. This process has been adjudicated. We know that it was turned down twice by the Inland Wetlands Commission, overturned by a court, but the process has been adjudicated. And so I guess the question is, what's our role as the Affordable Housing Committee? Our objective is to find opportunities for affordable housing, provide funding for that housing, and commit ourselves to doing it. And if we aren't committed to doing that, no one else is going to be doing that. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we're balancing these issues.
I'd just like to say something. I live close enough that I know this area very well, but I also don't live close enough to say that this impacts me. So my opinion is not based on how it affects me personally. It's based on what I hear. Yeah.
Okay, so should we,
Well, I have a question or comment. do that. So one of the goals that we had, isn't it to help the housing authority, to support them in their work to provide more additional units?
Goal number 3.
Yeah, so this is a way of doing that. The 570 is, not a big number, but it's not a lot compared to the budget. It's only like 2% of the development budget. And I like to think about the families that are going to be helped, and especially the 3-bedroom units.
I like that as
Hard
well.
to come by, so it's great. That's all. Thank you.
So, Steve, you want to make a motion then? You said you,
Yes. Do we have one? We have to create it from scratch, or do we have? one?
I'm sorry, you would have to, you just have, it's to recommend,
Move it to the Affordable Housing Committee.
I'll help you out if you need help.
recommend an allocation from the housing, of $570,000 from the Housing Trust Fund with a positive referral to the Board of Selectmen for their final approval.
Did you get that, Gretchen?
Thank goodness for the video.
Does that sound okay?
That's funny.
Is that what is that the sense of your motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Approved or moved in second. All in favor?
Any comments?
Yes, I'm sorry. Any additional comments from anyone?
Yes, so this is Nina again. So while I understand that our job as Affordable Housing Committee is to ensure that we have affordable housing for our constituents and people that live in Fairfield, and this project in black and white is absolutely amazing. And I think that it would be great for the people who will be benefiting from this. However, I would like to hear more from the neighbors and the people who are directly impacted by this. I'm definitely not impacted. I live in a place that there's tons of traffic near me. I live like right next to I-95, so it doesn't affect me at all. But I really think that we should, as much as our job is to ensure that there's affordable housing in Fairfield, Connecticut, we also need to ensure that our neighbors are taken care of and that we listen to their voices. So therefore, I will not be able to vote.
Understood. I mean, I think that in many ways, and we feel that process has already taken place. I mean, we know that there are pros and cons, and expressed by people. There's been a lot of time to do that. So I'm not sure we feel that it's our role as a committee to be gathering further input, but we respect people's decisions to vote their consciences on this, and all understood. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of proceeding? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Opposed?
Opposed?
I'm torn, so I think I'm abstaining.
Okay, so we've got one
Janice
abstention.
abstained.
Nina?
Nina? Are you opposed or abstaining?
I'm abstaining. I just need information from the neighbors. I understand that we don't care what the neighbors have to say, but I do.
We do care. No, let me just say what I said, Nina. We do care. We believe that process has already unfolded, and we don't want to be in a position, don't let me put this in people's mouths. I don't want to be in a position of delaying this project substantially in terms of gathering additional input, believing that input's already been gathered.
I will point out, again, this is not the final act.
Correct.
This needs to go before the Board of Selectmen for their consideration. I don't know when that'll happen, but we'll certainly let the board know of this committee's action, and then we'll put it on the agenda, and there'll be another opportunity for people to comment pro or con.
It is a good project. I am happy about it, but I also, I am really torn. So I don't want to say no, so I think abstention.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're hearing is
4 votes in favor and 2 abstentions, Janice and Nina.
so 4, 2 abstentions, and so that the motion's carried.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
all of
much
you.
for all your great work
Appreciate it.
over these 7 or whatever years.
And
I can do that, 7.
7 years, and we know it's been a really difficult and painful project all the way around, on all sides. And I think we, as a committee and as individuals, respect each other in terms of
Oh, yeah.
saying what we think has to be done and was important.
And I just want to say, many towns don't have an affordable housing committee, and many towns that have affordable housing committees don't really do the good work that you folks have done. So I just want to say that, I'm very respectful of your time. I know these are, hard times. We're in a housing crisis. It's difficult, but, the fact that the town has gotten as far as through volunteers such as yourself that are willing to spend the time to, promote the creation. So thank you for all the good work you do and hopefully continue to do. So thanks for taking on our app and voting for it. So appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you
Thank you
all
for
for
being
attending
here.
and being part of our discussion.
Carol, one last question. Have you done an estimate of the taxes that the project will pay?
We underwrote it without any type of tax relief. So I think it was $1,000 a unit. I don't have the development budget. I think Jen's probably trying to fish for it now. But we underwrote it with full taxes. Yeah.
Based on the valuation of the.
Of course, based on the assessors.
You have a reduced valuation of the project based on the income that's generated by this. And the tax assessor here does take that into account when calculating.
Absolutely.
$40,000, which is not always the case in other reports.
The development budget has really.
Carol, were you saying it's like 40,000 a year then?
Yeah, I think something tells me we were right around $1,000 a unit. Yeah, so I would say in the $40,000 range, yeah, which obviously is, much more taxes than the property currently is.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you again. You're welcome to stay.
No.
No, you're welcome.
I see an awful lot on that agenda. You people are like awesome. Thanks again for your time. Gretchen, good seeing you. I'll be seeing you, I think, in a few weeks. Yep.
So we have a number of items under old business. So Mark, maybe we want to prioritize these. Although some of them are going to be pretty quick items. So
Good.
good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good.
So do we want to take the quick ones first then, and maybe we'll.
I was just gonna run down quickly, down through the list. Thank you. So we usually do provide somewhat of a abbreviated update on projects kind of in the pipeline, so to speak. But I think we have covered that to some extent, based on some of the discussion that took place with 980 High Street. So we are, actively working towards accumulating enough points for a second moratorium, which would be valid for 5 years. So it would extend beyond the 2029 date for another 5 years. You need to get housing unit equivalency points equal to 1.5% of the number of housing units as of the last decennial census. So the points needed are basically 330 points. And as I said, we had some points that we were able to set aside or reserve from a prior application for a future one. And then we have projects such as the 2 set-aside developments, one on Bronson Road, one on Beach Road, that are under construction. We have a few other projects, notably the 71 units developed at Creek Line at Ash Creek, 219 Ash Creek, that have been completed. So beyond this particular project, which obviously has not started, but it sounds once the financing is in place and they'll close, ready to start construction. We have a few other projects that we're closely monitoring, which will put us over the hump. So that would be, there's a large called The Foundry, which is expected to break ground within the next 30 to 60 days. It's a very large project, involves remediation, site remediation. It was a former, as the name implies, foundry, sand casting foundry, machine tools. And so there is a notable remediation component to that site work.
Is that the property next to Illicit? Is that
Correct.
Correct.
Between Illicit and the train station.
What's the address on that one, Mark?
It's 81 Black Rock Turnpike. We have the project that the Planning and Zoning Commission did approve through a stipulated agreement, settlement agreement for 15 Umpqua. I talked to the developer who was intent on moving ahead with that project called Center Commons. There is the smaller of the two projects on Bureau Street, the gallery at Bureau, which was approved. And again, we anticipate that project would likely move forward. And then a mixed-use development at 730, 750 Commerce Drive, which is subject to our inclusionary requirements, which again, we're anticipating starting construction sometime next year. So there are other smaller projects. I didn't mention the habitat projects, obviously, that we've been working on. There are other projects that have been approved or in the planning stages that could conceivably also contribute points towards the moratorium. As I noted previously, if we don't have projects underway in terms of construction, shovels in the ground by kind of the end of next year, 2026, you might be hard pressed to see those being completed, CO'd in time to contribute points towards a moratorium. So that's really what we're tracking at this point.
So the circle, because of litigation or whatnot?
Yeah, I didn't include that. They have two projects there, 2179 Post similarly have a mixed use project and then a companion set aside development under 830G. Both projects in both instances have been appealed. And you just don't know how long that process will take. It could be several years. There's always an opportunity perhaps to settle things, and the hope is that at some point, the parties will get together and come to some agreement, but it's hard to count on those projects. The other one that I will mention that we did get a decision on, unfortunately, was not favorable to the town, was, I'm sure you read the news articles, Berkeley. And I have a copy of the decision. It was, the Town Planning and Zoning Commission was pretty much taken to task for its decision-making and whether or not it had sufficient grounds, justification to deny it on public health safety. It's pretty scathing, actually.
As somebody who's an expert, I
So,
wouldn't want to do that.
Again, I certainly understand where the commission was coming from, where the neighbors were coming from on this. It's certainly not an area that we would want to encourage this kind of development, but unfortunately, it's the law. You have to apply the law fairly, and that's another project that conceivably, given that decision, could be in that pipeline too. But as I pointed out at the Lifelong Learners, our experience has been that a number of these projects never get built. They get abandoned or not built. And I think that's going to be true, especially with some of these projects that have been rushed to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to the moratorium taking effect. Because I'm not sure that all these projects were well thought out and well founded. And we're already hearing from some developers who have approvals in place that it's certainly based on the current market and economic conditions, they're not buildable.
Yeah. I think we know of at least three.
I can think of at least three.
At least three that are not going to be built as approved.
So, you never know. That could change. They have a period of time in which their approvals are valid. They can extend those. They have years to act on them. But, again, the experience has been that some projects never see the light of day, even after going through the expense of getting projects approved. So I think that will be true with this most recent cohort of projects. But it's been a very trying time, I think, for the town as a whole, and certainly for the Planning and Zoning Commission, which has been meeting, weekly since, last year essentially. So I'm sure that they're hopeful that they'll be able to consider something else other than the set-aside application under 830G, which is the whole point of the moratorium. So
That's one thing they talked a lot about at IBME Town about the 50% of projects don't get built that are approved. That was pretty standard across the country. They said, and now it may be even worse given the funding going on.
we actually see a little bit higher.
Typical.
I guess we've been lucky, but we need to be mindful of that. And when people, start throwing around, X number of units have been approved by planning and zoning, you need to bring some reality to those numbers.
Yeah, I think we use that as a metric ourselves for a period of time to look at the projects in the pipeline. But as things have sorted out, it becomes very clear that some projects will never contribute towards our affordable housing inventory. Perhaps they shouldn't have in the first place been proposed, but we're a little higher than 15%. We're probably 20 or 20% currently. It might be more than that when we get through this latest round. So that's the moratorium status report. I can provide a further breakdown for the committee.
I think that'd be
So you
great.
understand what the points are. I mean, just take it as a grain of salt. When I provide, the list of projects that have been approved with points associated with that, they may or may not be realized. So that's my only concern.
You can do that project by project, Mark, like we
I
have.
can.
I think that'd be great for the committee to have.
And I already reported on the balance from the Housing Trust Fund. We'll certainly update that, assuming, we'll update that if and when the Board of Selectmen follows suit and does act on this request. But, for time being, I think we don't have any other applications pending, but we'll set that aside as if it's been committed. So we'll report on that. Parkview, we should be demolishing. We sent notices out. We have awarded the contract. That contract has been approved. Notice to proceed has been granted. We've notified abutting property owners that we're planning to demolish the units at 385 and 409 Quincy. That work is being funded through the Federal Community Development Block Grant, which can go towards site clearance and demolition and furtherance of affordable housing, and should be completed within the next 30 days. And then we are working with our partners at Habitat who have a ground lease for both parcels to come before the Planning and Zoning Commission for coastal area management approval. Because it typically, again, what they're proposing is as of right in the Residence B zone, a duplex. It's conforming and it's a permitted use, but because it's in a flood zone, we do need to submit it to Planning and Zoning for coastal area management review. They already have comments received from Connecticut DEP. Obviously there is always a concern when you intensify a use in a flood zone, even though this is a fairly modest expansion of affordable units or housing, period, in that area. So the Commission will certainly have to take that into consideration, but hopefully they've approved other non-affordable duplexes in that area, so hopefully this will follow suit. And then the plan would be then to start construction probably early next year. 244 Greenfield Street, we're just waiting for, we will hope, the plan is they would like to revise the documents under which we granted a ground lease to account for a common interest community. It was set up as a party wall agreement between the duplex owners. So in a way, the common interest community or condo, a small condo, is easier for the tax assessor to assign a value for not just the improvements, but half of the property, half of the lot as well. So the tax assessor is fully on board with that. We're just having the attorneys talk to one another, make whatever changes they need to do. So this would also apply presumably to the adjoining property at 254 Greenfield Street. Already the unit has been demolished, so the next step would be to present to the boards a development agreement and a ground lease for their consideration. And
Is there going to be a condo board?
there would have to be a condo board, yes. Yeah. And I know where you're going with it, because I have the same trepidation anytime we talk about small condos, especially for affordable. We have one down the street. It doesn't perform very well. The difference here is that you have a partner, Habitat, that is in the deal, all in terms of being the lender. And they have the right of first option to ensure that the performance of the loan. So they're there, and I think with that as a governing model, I think that gives me some more confidence that this will, what happens with affordable units that are structured as condominiums is that left to their own device, they can't afford professional management.
Are you talking
And then,
they're co-op structure?
No, not even co-ops. We're just talking a condominium. But then, it's a small condominium, so you only have 20, or in this case, you have maybe eight unit owners that are part of the condo. And so they're not typically served by professional management. They are reluctant to then set aside capital reserves to account for common things that need to be done when units age, like roofs and things like that. So that's been our experience with owner occupied housing down the street, which is a 22-unit condominium development. It's just, it's been problematic. And then you also, obviously need, with the condo, you have certain obligations, in terms of having meetings and filing reports and things of that nature, which, again, if you don't have a group that's well accustomed to that with support, we don't have a standing or a role. It's kind of, again, that's been our experience. So that when they first mentioned condo, I was like, I don't want any condos. But when you have Habitat, that's the funder, I think that makes a difference.
When they do maintenance on those houses, is that what increases their equity potentially?
Well, it could. Depends how they're structured. So a lot of the ones we have an allowance for any homeowner improvements to the physical structure that are permanent, not cosmetic or not, customary wear and tear or things that could be removed like appliances. If you're, updating a kitchen, you're putting in new hardwood floors or something like that. Yeah, they should, be able to recoup some of that through some kind of formula. So we do usually account for that. But, there always is going to be a cap, a limit as to what you can, and that's true. If I renovate my kitchen, I'm not getting dollar for dollar out what I put in. As soon as you do it, you never get the full value back.
I sort of assume that's why Parkview Commons got so run down, because those people just didn't invest in the properties. So.
I think part of it is we're dealing with, it's really, there are some that are well maintained and there's some that are not so well maintained. And I think you start with a 1950s vintage house that probably wasn't the most
Military housing too.
Yeah, it was utilitarian. It was not meant for comfort,
for 60 years,
or even efficiency. It wasn't intended to maybe last 100 years or more. So I do think that one of the missteps we had, and it's what we were left to deal with. The town at the time wanted to just resell the lots as is. They didn't want to. My recommendation at the time was to scrape the property clean and build new at the correct flood elevation at that time, which would have been too short anyway, subsequent to Sandy, but, you know, at least they would have had new product there. But, you know, both the committee and the RTM, first selectman at the time, didn't want to do that. Because it would have been, you know, we would have had to invest money, you know. We spent $6.7 million buying the property. We would have had to, you know, it depends how we structured, who did the development. I could have come up with ways that we would have had to put another dollar into it, but in any event, we decided not to do that. So fast forward, really what triggered this is Superstorm Sandy. And while the homes themselves didn't suffer any significant damage, one or two were able to claim that they had substantial damage enough that the state paid to lift the units, but they only paid to lift the existing 1950s vintage units and put them on blocks, which isn't the most attractive thing. But the property and the roads obviously flooded. And as a result of that, what we saw was those that had mortgages, you had to cover not just your property insurance, but your flood insurance. And flood insurance premium went up because the federal government was looking at an approach that would be more equivalent to what the risk was, risk-based pricing. And so our concern was this won't be sustainable as an affordable housing unit for very long unless we do something. And the only thing that we could think of was to purchase back the units and then fix the underlying problem. But to make the numbers work a little better, you have to add more units, which serves our bigger purpose in terms of providing more housing opportunities. But again, you're in a flood zone, so you want to balance that against not exposing people to undue hazard or risk. So I think that's, you know, those are the competing public policy goals that, you know, state and town officials are trying to balance.
Why did we hold the key parties before the people actually got the keys?
What's that?
Why did we hold the key parties, you know, in July or whatever?
You know, I think
Ranger kind of thing?
I don't really know. That I thought the closing was going to be faster.
Week or whatever, yeah.
And you know, I knew at the time when they were doing it, they didn't have the COs either, but they were close. And I believe now have all their COs. So it's really, they're holding it up at this point. And I think part of it is, and I kept saying, you know, if you want to change the structure, you need to change the structure before you sell the units, because to do it after closing is going to be a mess. So they were a little, I mean, I know they've got a lot on their plate, but yeah, we've been pushing this along. So I'm through D.
Okay.
So I'll pause for you, Mr. Chair.
Give yourself a break and I'll try to pick up for a little bit.
November 19th.
Okay, so I'll keep moving along in Mark's order. So the ADU workshop, we have a date. Not sure we have a location.
We have a location.
Excellent, we have a location as well.
We're in the event space above the Fairfield University store in downtown Fairfield.
That's where early voting will be.
Yes.
It's a very good space.
It's a really nice space for
Yes.
this type of
It's empty.
event. And we just had to need to express our appreciation to Fairfield University because it's after when the store closes. So they had to arrange staffing coverage, especially for us. And they're also waiving the fee for us to use it, which is very nice. We appreciate it.
So it's above the store?
So the second floor space, it used to be the children's area in the reference.
There's a little kitchen, there are
Yeah, it's great.
restrooms. It's a great space.
So that'll be, what's figure, 7 o'clock on
Yes.
Wednesday this
Yes.
year, Wednesday the 19th.
Do we have handouts? We're gonna, little trifolds?
We do have the trifold. We have plenty of those.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can go through our existing inventory and then maybe do a reprint, maybe update.
We reached out to Emmeline, and Emmeline will be, she has another developer that experienced
Local
developer.
local builder.
Local guy, Oscar Reams. Okay, so Oscar has agreed, and Oscar has an ADU client that he suggests that he's already spoken to the client. So, Mark, I was going to speak with you, and if you'd like me, I can reach out to.
Please.
I know you got your hands full. I kind of almost do now too, but you're busier. So I'll reach out to Oscar and Brian Fitzgerald, I think is the name of the ADU owner. And then we've got the issue of a realtor. And we've used, I guess, Denise Walsh the last couple of years. So Steve, I'll talk with you about that separately in terms of where we go with that. Okay?
She's been good. We just need to manage the time on that.
Yeah, she Bob, who knows her quite well, suggested maybe we put Denise at the end, or maybe we divide Denise's comments into formal and then afterwards for Q&A. But we'll find a way to do that. But she's been really quite good. And then we also talked about, we had the Habitat visit yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute, but we talked about perhaps we could use this as an opportunity to promote Habitat's work and their objectives.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that, and since we have, we could include information at the ADU workshop, but I think the other thought we had or suggestion that we were talking about was perhaps having a workshop, similar workshop in the spring, or a conversation that the Affordable Housing Committee would host around the Habitat model. And I think it's a good story, a very good narrative.
Great story.
And that would be a good time to do that, because that would be about the time when they're starting to look for groups to volunteer as part of their community build. So it's an opportunity not only to talk about the partnership between the town and Habitat and the role that the Housing Trust Fund, the Affordable Housing Committee have played to provide the land by which then they can do this, and how Habitat goes through the process of selecting, candidate homeowners and the community building process and all that. But it's timing wise would work out. Then you'd have something in the fall and the spring, I think, to again amplify your work and build awareness around the need for affordable housing. So
They can reinforce each other, so we can be talking ADUs at the same time we talk Habitat. And then any type of setting like this is an opportunity for us to promote the Housing Trust Fund and the value of getting contributions to the fund. So we should look for every opportunity to do that.
Mark, do you know of any other town that works with one of the Habitat groups as well as we do?
well, I know in coastal Fairfield County, they have units in Bridgeport, Stratford, here, and I think there might be something down county like Stanford or something. But most of it's in Stratford, Bridgeport, and here. And I can, unless something has changed in Stratford, I can say that the relationship, and I think it's a question you should pose to Habitat, but I think the relationship the town of Fairfield and this body has with Habitat is probably unique amongst those groups.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think most of what they're doing right now is with us and Bridgeport, based upon a conversation I had with them yesterday, but we can.
But I think in Bridgeport, they're working like on their own, that they find a piece of property and they renovate it or.
Yes,
or build
yeah,
new.
I think it's true.
And here,
I think there's a little bit more opportunity to find parcels that they can redevelop without, a lot of assistance from the town or city.
And they're definitely looking for development that is contribution dollars, opportunities. I mean, that was one reason why they were happy to have us yesterday. They'd like us to be looking to point them in that direction. Jackie, you had an interesting conversation with them about that. So that's part of the relationship. Whether we like that or not, it's part of the relationship that's important. So ADU workshop, all set. We can provide updates as we get further. Technical assistance, they're still trying to get funding for this next year, Mark. They said today that they're close to that. We had a sort of informal Zoom meeting today, and I was involved in most of it. Mark had a conflict. Emmeline was there the entire time. It was just a small representation today, sort of talking about a few issues and getting help and things going on. So we didn't, it wasn't really much, you didn't miss much of anything, Mark. But I think we're waiting for them, and I think they're optimistic about getting funding to support the next round, as we had last year, of in-person meetings. So, POCD. POCD was approved last night 4-3 by the Fire Commission after 7 years of hard work.
I mean, the last.
So Emmeline's very happy that it's over with. I think she wishes it were other than 4-3, but it's done. And so I think we're all happy about that. So as the next step we had talked about, and this sort of leads into truly another issue that we have, and that is objectives that we've been working on and beginning the process of teeing these up for consideration now that the POCD has been passed. And we had talked about, as a next step, confirming the concurrence, our committee concurrence. We presented these ideas and had a good discussion last month, but maybe getting everyone's agreement that we move ahead and have some informal conversation with planning staff. And as a next step.
Yeah, that's how that was my recollection, that there seemed to be general consensus to at least consider all of the options that we had put on the table. And then to set up a meeting with planning staff to discuss the specifics of that. I did note that I received an updated copy of the zoning regulations. They did reformat and make technical corrections to it. They haven't made any substantive ones yet, but even with that technical rewrite, incorporating a lot of the amendments that have taken place recently, there has been some changes in the language that do impact, how we approach these things. And part of it might be just trying to clean up some of the language because, for example, there's reference different ways in which points, the set aside inclusionary requirements are calculated, and whether or not you're looking at the lesser of statewide or area median income or simply area median income. And so to any attempt we have to just capture all the information and try to consolidate it somewhat to make it a little bit more cohesive would be helpful. But I think the next step, as I see it, is just to try to get Emmeline and John in a room. And then, I don't know, you, Herb, and a few others, but just to go through and get their comments before we kind of come back to you with some very specific text for your consideration. But we have time. I mean, they had on I don't know if they got to it last night, but they were making some substantive changes to the regulations.
I think they still started it last night.
Yeah.
They finished up on the POCD maybe 8:40, 8:45. So I think they had some time.
So they have, my point is they have other things on their agenda, so they're not exactly waiting for us. But yeah, it'd be nice to try to get this before the board after the elections and once the new board has been seated, which could be the old board.
So are we going to submit all 8, or are we going to?
Well, I think we were going to talk to the Emmeline and John about all 8 and then get their thoughts. I think they may have some feedback that we should bring back to the full committee, and they may have some thoughts in terms of how we specifically write the language.
I would think we'd want to focus on 2 or 3 or something. 'cause
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's-
that's a good point too, which is, maybe it's in conversation with staff, we can get a better sense as to what they think would be the priorities.
Yeah, if we go, I mean, if we talked about, almost one item, we talk about the minimum, the minimum number of units, the attachment point, I call it, using my terminology. So where we start assigning units, so if it's 5-unit development, and we could talk about the percentage, both for general and also TOD. And then we also talk about the inclusionary zoning fee. It's almost one package.
They're almost all related.
So it might be good if we make sure we had consensus on that tonight, so we could maybe talk specifically about that. But some of the other items, a little bit more fungible. But we could at least have preliminary discussion with them. So maybe those 3, and then if we want to do anything with the fee in lieu, do we want to do anything on that one? I mean, those might be ones that we want to specifically get the committee's thoughts on tonight.
Well, I like those 3. I thought.
Well, we are.
That-
So, we already have a payment in lieu option for residential development option for sale. Well, we don't have I'm sure we have a unit in lieu, off-site unit in lieu, so.
Yeah, and a charge that we had proposed.
And we have, the commission has already approved some changes to the design resident district overlay, what may accomplish one of the goals in our plan.
And that's subject to, I mean, that was challenged.
It's under appeal. I do think the commission is likely to consider some changes to parking regulations. I'm not so, they certainly are looking at shared parking and other ways to, make more efficient use of land. I don't know that, I'm sure that they would be, I'm not sure, but I believe they would be open to lowering parking requirements for larger commercial developments as we've discussed here.
These, Mark, that are in the, are already in the POCD, I think are identical to what we had proposed.
Yeah, yep. So I think, again, unless, we could certainly talk about all of them, or whatever ones you want.
We can, I mean, we don't need to have to say, A or nay on $6 per thousand or $10 per thousand tonight, if you prefer to wait on that. But an increase in the inclusionary zoning fee, 5 units, and I think we said 12%, 15 in the TOD.
Yeah, I think we're looking to bump up, and, part of it is, we're less, I guess, once we get beyond we have, let's assume we've got some control over our own destiny for the foreseeable future. Then I think, it becomes a conversation where we want, high quality developments that's going to help contribute to our affordable housing needs. And so we might not be as motivated to reach down and extend offers to something that's less than that. That's kind of where I'm thinking. But that, certainly it is consistent with the POCD, and the POCD does say consider increasing. So I guess it would be up to us to decide, what we think is appropriate. But I would like to get, Emmeline and John's thoughts on that too, in terms of, their conversations with the commission.
Great. So let's see, Yimby Town?
I wasn't there.
I have my 5-minute report. So It was 2.5 days in New Haven, 1,000 people, 30 states, 3 countries, 300 speakers. It was excellent. I really enjoyed it. We had 8 people from the group I'm affiliated with, Congregations Organized for New Connecticut was there. And the plenary and the keynote speakers were just fabulous. There was a woman from Redfin, their chief economist, and she was really sharp. And some of the breakout rooms were, I kept getting in the wrong room. I sat through building codes at one time. It was packed. There was people sitting on the floor. It was just really packed. But the building codes actually ended up being interesting because they talked about this whole single stair issue. And building codes, I don't know, you may all know this, I didn't know this, it's a volunteer organization and there's no sort of formal structure to it. And it's basically retired people running this, and it takes 3 years to get a building code changed, which is lightning fast, is what they were saying. So it was sort of interesting. The guy was talking about there's these lobbyists who that's all they do is do building code stuff, I guess, and he was trying to advocate for a 6-story, single stair. Do you know about single stairs? And yeah, and that wasn't flying because he said they're totally dictated by sprinkler systems. That drives all the building codes is what the fire department wants. And so it's been a real uphill climb. But I think they did get, I forget which state it was in, they did get past 4. But I guess there's 2 building code organizations, one for the East Coast and one for the West Coast. And just weirdo facts like that were kind of interesting. The best thing that came away from it, though, was the messaging. There was a group called Welcoming Neighbors out of Texas, and they actually hired professional market researchers to sort of say, how do we sell affordable housing better? And he came up with different messaging, and so I made you all a copy.
All right.
I thought it was really good because they did focus groups and surveys, and I thought it was very good stuff. But basically, they came away saying that
We'll send this along to you.
we have to talk about it differently. And this is what they recommended. Use these sorts of things to talk about it differently. And let's see. Oh, and the other big thing that came up a lot was Bill McKibben was there. I didn't know who that was, but he's super famous as an environmentalist, I guess. And he was a great speaker. But what a lot of even the environmentalists all talk about was insurance. That was sort of a hot topic too, how there with all the climate issues, the flooding, the fires, you're not going to be able to get insurance. And in fact, most states are not doing an adequate job of having actuaries on staff to make sure the insurance companies are fully funded the way they should be. And so he said that's just going to blow up really bad. So that was a lot of different conversations went on about insurance. And so what was I going to say? The messaging thing was very interesting. The last thing I said of the day was on parking. And it was very interesting. There's these 3 guys who are just guys that live in Connecticut who decided to look into parking. And they came away, one of the examples they gave was, actually Texas did a really good brochure on it. Washington State, the state of parking mandates in Washington. But they had a really good visual, which was, as parking increases, building size decreases. So they said, this is what you're paying for. You're getting, instead of getting a 20-unit building, you get a 14-unit building. And then you get more parking, then you're getting a 10-unit building. But they used Fairfield as an example of a bad downtown parking structure. Fairfield and Greenwich, which I think was unfair, because they said Fairfield has 39% of parking downtown is surface parking. Which is a big negative, but it's because they're including the train parking, which to me it doesn't. They were talking about having a beautiful, Connecticut square, and that your goal is not to have so much surface parking, although they also said that if you don't have curb parking, it kills your downtown. So I think actually Fairfield does a pretty good job on having curb parking available. So, and Greenwich was the other example, which I think also has a beautiful downtown, that beautiful street, but then at the bottom of the street they have the train parking there, so they're 34% surface parking, which they viewed as very negative. But they said the other problem is when you have, they're talking about when park a garage, but people don't like parking garages, so they don't like the look of it in a quaint downtown. So anyway, there was a lot of talk about the parking panel was very interesting. So what they had to say. So yeah, there was lots of good stuff. I didn't go to half of Tom had me go into every single thing on the list. So-
It's like, which one should I go to? Tom checked off everything.
Tom's eyes were bigger than Jackie's could possibly be.
I just did on a financing, a developer did a whole talk about how they do the financing and a little bit like how Carol does hers. I'm trying to grasp it, but it was definitely over my head. But it was very interesting. It was a lot of planners. Emma Line was a star there. I mean, she's the president of the Connecticut Planners, so she has had a little group around her talking. I think she was just there one day, but yeah, it was excellent. I highly recommend it. It was nice that it was in Connecticut because a lot of the sessions actually spoke about Connecticut. I went to the New Haven, the Affordable Housing Committee. It was sort of their planner and their people who implement the affordable housing had this panel. And it was the Route 34 when they put that through, it was in the 50s, I guess, they tore down a whole neighborhood. And then it took them forever to get it built because they had all sorts of bad stuff in the ground that they had to remediate and stuff. So when they finally got it built, it was only like 30 units. It wasn't even that many. I was sort of surprised. But it was interesting. They said it's 20, it was sort of like what she was talking about, 25, 30, 40, 80%, breakdown of affordable housing. And so I asked, like, how did you arrive at that breakout? And no one knew. I don't know if that was dictated by federal funds they received or what. I don't know how that works. But it was kind of interesting. All these people that's all they did was work on affordable housing had no idea how that was broken out. So.
Yeah, how you do it now is you're trying to be in competitive applications. You're trying to maximize the number of points that you would. So
you don't need it because they're like
project would compete favorably compared to other projects. That's how Carol did it. So she took out the market rate units and created more lower income units so that the project would be more competitive against the other projects competing for the 9% credit. So.
It was almost like they didn't worry about it. I don't know if like New Haven is.
Well, maybe they didn't know. I'm sure that's probably was part of the equation. How to.
The other shock was their median income is $54,000 versus our 140 or whatever it is right now. That was kind of amazing.
It must be a single person though, not a family of four. I can't imagine a family of four.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that even today. That seems really low.
Then they have 120% housing because obviously there's people at Yale that make really good money. So it was really good. It was a good session. This is just kind of quirky interest. There was a Republican governor from North Dakota, Tony Armstrong from North Dakota. And he was like, okay, I know you're all liberal out there, but listen, we were the only state during COVID that grew. And the reason we grew is because we had a pipeline and all these construction workers were out of business. And so they all came to South Dakota and they all came to this one town of 1,200 people. And that town grew in like 4 months from 1,200 to 28,000. So he said, we know what problems of having no affordable housing is like when you have that. And he said, he went on and talked about that. But the one interesting thing he said was that in a conservative state like North Dakota, we put in a state-run childcare facility in that town because we couldn't get anyone to do it, and we had to do it by state. So he said, we did it in a conservative state like North Dakota, and he said it worked, and we had to do it in order to keep people happy. So he was interesting too. He was a keynote speaker.
I think that as a state, they're essentially creating a little sovereign wealth fund within the state with all the money that's flowing out of the oil.
Yeah, but he talked about that, how that's been really paid off for them.
Yeah.
To have their own bank. They have their own state-run bank.
Well, good. Yeah. Great. I've got a very quick age-friendly update. So first, lifelong learners. Thank you again, Jackie, for arranging that.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Mark. Thanks to Mark.
Mark did a great job. That was last Tuesday. And it was a much better attendance than any of us dreamed would be there. Probably
It was the biggest attended event so far for this session at
wonderful. In the 50s.
People paying $12
Yeah, big money.
Wow.
And,
That was the only complaint they got, that it was a town employee and they had to pay.
I heard. I got the complaint. I was like, well, it didn't come to me, so.
but it was a very. I thought it would be
Just any town employee.
I thought it'd be a large population of people that were looking for housing. It wasn't.
Yeah, I was surprised that there wasn't.
Teacher.
I thought it would be more aggressive.
So I think we reached into the lifelong learners population and had a lot of people, you know, who were committed lifelong learners to be there. And so it's interesting for us to think about in terms of future meetings, but it was great representation, and we sent a copy of Mark's slides to everyone who was there. And I also was able to add a few comments about the Age Friendly project in that. So Brenda Steele sent that out to everyone who was there. So that worked out great. We're actually going to use some of Mark's slides and a few things from the Age Friendly Fairfield Housing Domain project in a national webinar, Age Friendly Community Webinar next week. So Mark's going to speak. We have 12 minutes. Mark's going to give Mark, 9 or so, and I'm going to take 3. We're going to do this from here as part of this national webinar next week. Yeah.
I was surprised you get complaints like, why are they building that thing there? Or why are they building that thing there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send everybody the registration link if you want to dial in. It's Tuesday at 3.
We had some, very, very good discussion, questions before and at breaks and after the session. So there were some folks obviously concerned about developments happening in their neighborhood, but I totally get it, But I think, I thought the questions were really good.
So the Age Friendly project has been approved. It's gone before the Board of Selectmen, accepted, and so we're off and running now. I'll send everybody a copy of that plan, and you can see a digital copy of the plan, and I'll show you where the housing piece is. And there's a portion there about senior housing too, and I know that's one of your interests, Janice. And you may really want to jump into this, and this is probably the right time, so we'll give you more information about it. But speaking of senior housing, the Human Services Commission had First Select Woman Vitale come at their meeting on the 25th. And they were really talking heavily about senior housing. So they're really concerned about the lack of senior housing. We're really pressing First Select Woman on this. I mean, she's only been in office for a short time, not in a position to work wonders yet, but I think she did say that she would reach out to this group about that subject. So we probably will be hearing more about senior housing in the not too distant future.
One of the most startling things that came out, at least for me, out of your talk, Mark, was the composition of people who are renting in these new apartment buildings that are coming up. Everyone assumed it would be young professionals with many children. 1/3 was young professionals with hardly any children. 1/3 was people with life changes, divorces, deaths, etc. And 1/3 was seniors. So an ADA compliant bathroom may be actually more attractive for 1/3 of the renters than a gym, that fancy gym. That was very startling. Yes. And everyone I mentioned, the eyes pop open. They said, "Gosh, never heard of this." More importantly, never thought of this as a possibility.
Well, in a way, it kind of does make sense because a lot of these units are not 1, 2 bedrooms predominantly, or studios. So you really aren't looking at large household size. Not that we have. And again, if you look at some of the demographics from the census, look at the number of people that are living alone. Living alone that are over 65, living alone as a female over 65. Those numbers are pretty startling, but they also match national trends. If you look at the numbers,
they do.
You see the number of people living by themselves nationally. It's a steady progression upwards.
Yes.
As is the aging in populations, has been well documented. So and again, what struck me, and we've been talking about that a little bit, is you have a need for smaller households. And a substantial number of people living by themselves or as 2-person households. but yet most of our housing stock are 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom houses.
Yeah.
So, you have too much house for what you need as a
yeah.
1 or 2 person household,
Yeah.
if you can even afford that.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think, you hear from seniors,
Yeah.
they don't want a 5-bedroom house with a big yard.
You want
They'd like to have
downsize.
another option.
Downsize too.
And so, but you got to be able to downsize into something else.
Yeah.
And does that something else exist?
When you
And I think, some people there at
Yeah.
that said, yeah, the rentals are fine, but I'm not quite ready for an apartment style living.
Yeah.
I'd like to have, something, a smaller, 1 or, a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And does that exist, or, a condo? And we haven't seen a lot of new condos developed recently. And so I think that's why, this DRD regulation amendment is important, because that's what allowed a lot of the condos to be
To be
built.
built originally.
Absolutely.
When you say it, when you sort of lay it out this way, it seems logical, but I don't think it was obvious to me or
I don't think
anyone that I
it
talked to.
wasn't obvious to me, and so you start looking at the numbers, and then it kind of makes sense, right?
I
So-
think you have an exhibit on that, Mark, that Jim Wayne had put together. Did you say you have a presentation on that composition of the,
It's on one of the slides.
Slides.
One of the slides.
it's on the,
Yeah, I think so.
It's yeah.
our
I
website?
think so.
Yeah, because I know I've seen it.
Okay, great. I looked for it, I didn't see it, but I mean.
It's in that thing that he did at Lifelong Learners. It's in there.
Yeah, it's there, but I wasn't sure if it was on the,
There are only 70 slides. Come on, you can't memorize them all.
For $12, you gotta get your value.
that's right.
Boy, geez.
What's that cost per slide?
There was grumbling about the $12 from certain sources, yeah.
Wasn't my choice.
Price per slide.
I appear for free.
Jackie, were you responsible for the pricing of the?
No, I think that was so funny.
$12? I don't know where that came from.
That's like a rate.
I looked at that, I was like, what?
I don't even know, was that what it was, $12?
$12. It was like $12, That's all I'm worth.
I think that's half price, I think is probably what they did.
All right, well,
But
I
this is a great session, we should be repeating.
thought it
this
should be
session.
free.
It's really well done.
But I understand the big Los Angeles cost, so whatever.
Anything else for this evening?
Can I get this in a digital form so I can share that?
Yeah, I've got an extra.
I'm just saying, my copy's a little,
What, the original?
did that come from?
That was, I just copied it, that's,
Just have a copy.
I don't have a color copy.
All right,
I can scan it and send it to you.
that's why I was gonna scan it. My copy looks a little light.
So if you think about it, Mark, scan it and send it to.
I will send it to everyone.
Okay, Mark, did you have anything else?
I didn't.
Anyone else? We talked about a lot tonight.
Nina's still on, or did she?
Yes.
Nina?
Oh, Savannah.
Yes, Savannah is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm living in the Old District area, so it's really, really beautiful.
We need a field trip. Right? At Affordable
Yeah, that
Housing.
should be our next site visit for sure.
All right, so David, we'll see you next month.
Yes, I'll be back next month. Yeah,
Cool.
back home finally.
All right. Safe travels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
we can take a motion for adjournment. Janice is,
Yeah, I second that.
Motion to adjourn.
Nina seconded.
Nina seconded.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.